My name is Linda Rangel, and I was 25 when the message arrived. It was 7:42 on a Thursday evening, just past sunset. No preamble, no hello, not even the kind of stiff formality my father sometimes used when he wanted to sound caring without actually being so. Just his voice, clipped, steady, cold as a quarterly earnings call. Don't bother coming to the family reunion. We're cutting ties. 18 words. If you count the silence before he disconnected, 18 syllables. I listened to it again. Not because I doubted what I'd heard, but because some strange part of me expected the playback to hurt more. I thought there should have been an eruption. Rage, grief, maybe a crushing weight pressing down on my ribs. Instead, what I felt was stillness, like my body had been bracing itself for years, and now it had finally heard the sentence it always knew was coming. If you've ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to be your foundation, you'll understand. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I was the youngest of two. My father, Warren Rangel, wasn't just a businessman. He was an empire builder. He had constructed Rangel Auto Air from greasy overalls and oil-stained wrenches all the way to glossy franchises across the state. He was a mechanic, a dealer, a negotiator, and eventually a regional tycoon. My older brother, Rhett, had been chosen as the heir apparent long before I could spell the word inheritance. Charismatic, reckless, untouchable. The golden boy with Warren's grin and Warren's appetite for risk. And me, I was the silent ballast that kept everything upright. I balanced books, fixed cracks, filled gaps. I was the reliable one, reliable enough to vanish into usefulness. That night, I didn't call him back. I didn't demand explanations or scream into the phone. I didn't forward the voicemail to my mother, Lynette, though part of me knew she probably heard his plan long before I did. Her specialty was selective silence when business turned inconvenient. Instead, I sent him a text with 2 words. Understood. Then I opened my laptop, logged into a loan portal I hadn't touched for months, and did the one thing I was certain none of them expected. I began removing myself, not out of vengeance, not even spite, just clarity. 2 years earlier, when Warren had been desperate to fund a $2.5 million expansion, the bank insisted on a secondary signer with pristine credit. Rhett was drowning in personal debt. Warren was leveraged to the hilt. And me? I had spotless records and a Harvard MBA. They didn't beg. They didn't explain. They simply slid the paperwork in front of me, pen uncapped, like my signature was just another line item to be checked off. I signed because I thought loyalty equaled belonging, that if I proved myself indispensable enough, I'd finally be more than the family's insurance policy. But that night, listening to the voicemail echo faintly from my phone, I realized the truth. They hadn't cut me out that evening. They'd just spoken aloud what they'd been doing for years. The only difference was that now I was ready to finish their sentence for them. See, I used to believe my father worshipped order, that he prized efficiency above all else. But I'd come to understand it wasn't order he loved. It was control. Warren built the company and our family the same way he built engines, part by part, tightly wound. No room for slack, no tolerance for softness. The garage came first, then the business, and if there was any room left, family. Usually there wasn't. He had a motto, one he repeated at dinners, in meetings, even at Christmas. We don't hire outsiders. We raise replacements. That's what Rhett and I were supposed to be. Replacements waiting in the wings. Rhett, being older, louder, and blessed with Warren's swagger, always drew the spotlight. I was handed the clipboard, the calculator, the ledgers. By 12, I was inputting tire shipments into QuickBooks. At 16, I was managing payroll during my spring break while other kids were at the beach. No one asked if I wanted to. It was assumed. No thanks, no acknowledgement. Just expectation, thick as oil. My mother wasn't cruel. She was simply absorbed into Warren's orbit. She'd fold invoices while stirring dinner, smile through business meetings, then remind me afterwards, "Your father is building something for us. Be grateful, sweetheart." And I was, or I tried to be. I studied relentlessly, got into Harvard, earned my MBA. I turned down a lucrative logistics position in Chicago because Warren said family before ambition. Rhett was dreaming up vision. I was handling reality. When it came time for the headquarters expansion, I had secured the lease, compared 6 banks, negotiated a rate freeze, and walked us through terms that should have been celebrated. But the bank wanted another signer. Rhett couldn't. Warren wouldn't. So it landed on me. No speech, no acknowledgement, just the pen waiting. I signed, believing I was helping secure a legacy that would include me. It took me far too long to understand that usefulness and belonging are not the same thing. Silence is not love, it's just silence. The crack in the illusion didn't arrive with shouting or slamming doors. It arrived as laughter. Rhett's laughter, sharp and careless. We were in a quarterly review, just the three of us. I flagged a duplicated $12,000 vendor invoice. Clear mistake, or so I thought. That's from a buddy of mine, Rhett said, brushing it off like lint. He cuts us deals elsewhere. Let it go. I turned to Warren, expecting at least a raised brow. Something. Anything. He didn't blink, just sipped his coffee. Focus on bigger things, Linda, he said. Stop acting like an outsider. That word landed like a brand on my skin. Outsider. After years of building the framework, keeping payroll afloat, negotiating contracts, saving costs that paid for Rhett's flashy new office chair, I was suddenly other. The invisible line had been drawn. From there, the unraveling was subtle but unmistakable. My logins stopped working. First the vendor platforms, then the financial dashboards. The corporate credit card expired, never replaced. I was excluded from board meetings under the excuse of restructuring. Meanwhile, Rhett flaunted a Vegas leadership retreat, paid by company funds, and a standing desk that cost more than my rent. Something in me shifted. Not rage, not yet, but a sharpened awareness. My instincts whispered they're building a door, and it only swings one way. So I started collecting. Every email, every report, every invoice Rhett signed with my initials. At night, I compiled them into a folder I called Shadow Ledger. I didn't know if I was planning an exit or building a defense, only that I needed truth before they stripped even that from me. Eventually, I reached out to Danielle Keller, a former classmate from law school. She had once helped her sister disentangle from a disastrous real estate partnership. I gave her pieces of the picture. Not the whole story, not yet. My question was simple. If a cosigner withdraws from a business loan, what happens? Her pause was heavy. It depends, she said finally. If you're not a guarantor and you haven't been tied to recent misuse, the loan can be reevaluated, quietly, legally. For the first time in years, I let myself exhale. I didn't know yet whether I was escaping or defending myself, but I knew this. The narrative I'd been living, loyal daughter, unseen cornerstone, wasn't mine anymore. They weren't just edging me out. They were exploiting my silence while draining my credit. And then came the morning when everything crystallized. Early spring, the trees outside my office just beginning to bloom. I remember that vividly because the new green leaves made what I was uncovering feel even older, rotted through. My credit summary arrived. I almost deleted it out of habit. Then I saw a line item, Wrangle Holdings Deferred Payment Review. That name hadn't surfaced in years. A shell company Warren once used, supposedly dormant. Curious, I dug deeper. And what I found wasn't just mismanagement. It was worse. The expansion loan, the one I had co-signed 2 years back, was 3 months delinquent. We were surviving only on grace periods, vendor delays, and the goodwill of creditors who believed in my name, my clean record, my financial reliability, the very reliability they just severed with 18 words on a Thursday night. And still, I wasn't on the financial reports. I hadn't seen balance sheets in months. The last update Rhett gave me was a text with a winking emoji and the phrase, "No worries, sis. Big vision incoming. Vision doesn't pay overdue bills." I pulled archived statements, traced invoices quarter by quarter, and the picture grew ugly fast. Over $40,000 in consulting fees funneled through one of Rhett's friends, marketing tests with no campaigns tied to them. Triple-billed fleet repairs, my initials forged on approvals I had never touched. This wasn't negligence, it was design. That same day, I sat across from Danielle in a quiet courthouse cafe. I slid the documents across the table. She studied them page after page, calm but intent. When she reached the loan contract, she tapped the margin. "You're not listed as a guarantor," she said at last. I blinked. Meaning what? Meaning they used your signature to secure it. "But if you withdraw before restructuring," She looked me dead in the eye. "You're free. And if I do..." Danielle set down the papers, folded her hands, and said something I've never forgotten. "You don't need to confront them. Don't warn, don't scream. Just move the brick holding up their wall and let it fall." I went home that evening and opened the folder I had renamed. No longer Shadow Ledger, now Redemption Plan. Inside were PDFs, flagged emails, account screenshots, and a draft letter Danielle had helped me write weeks earlier, back when I still hesitated. I didn't hesitate anymore. They hadn't just pushed me out. They had used me until they assumed I had no more left to give. And maybe I didn't. But I had one thing left to take. My name. It took 4 minutes. That's how long the portal stayed open once I logged in using the administrative credentials I had created 2 years ago. Back when I still had full access. Back when I thought I was building something real. The screen flickered once, then showed a notice. Co-Likant status active. Modification options available? I clicked remove, then I uploaded the signed withdrawal letter Danielle and I had finalized 3 weeks earlier. I typed in my PIN, submitted. No alarm sounded. No confirmation emails, just a quiet message in gray text at the bottom of the screen. Update received. Processing pending compliance review. It was done. The next step was risk control. I mailed the bank's loan manager, a man named Keith Herr, someone I'd negotiated with during the expansion phase. I attached a summary of financial discrepancies, vendor fraud, altered signatures, and access restrictions indicating internal exclusion. I was careful, clear, professional. What I didn't include was emotion. Within the hour, the bank froze the operating account tied to Wrangle Holdings and triggered an internal review of the loan. Quietly, no call to my father, no memo to Rhett. Just a pause, a blinking cursor in their system where once there'd been blind trust. While they scrambled, I moved. I contacted my personal accountant, Sabrina Kim, someone I trusted from my grad school years. We reviewed my exposure, ran simulations on worst-case scenarios. She confirmed what Danielle had said. No liability, no credit damage, not even a legal obligation to notify them. The trust I had moved my savings into last month was protected. That night, for the first time in years, I left my phone on silent and actually meant it. I slept. When I woke up the next morning, there were already 32 missed calls. By mid-afternoon, there were 78 from my mother, 13 from my father, 7 from Rhett, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize until I played the voicemail. It was Gordon Maddox, their longtime company accountant. His voice was high-pitched, panicked, almost cracking. "Linda, call me now. This is serious. The loan's collapsing. The bank pulled support. We're at risk of default. You need to fix this. Do you hear me? You have to fix this." I listened to it twice, not because I didn't understand what he meant, but because it sounded like justice. And justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't scream. It echoes. By early evening, Rhett sent his first text. "What the hell did you do?" And then another. "You're overreacting. We could have handled this internally." But the word we didn't land anymore. There hadn't been a way in a long time. Later that night, my mother left a voicemail, not angry but quiet, trembling. "Sweetheart, what's happening? Your father says the bank froze everything that they might recall the loan. Did you sign something?" I did, but I didn't explain. I called her back, let the line ring twice. I removed my name, that's all. Her breath caught. "But you can't just do that." "Actually, I can," I said. And I did. She paused. "Linda, this affects all of us." "No," I replied calmly. "You made sure it didn't," and then I hung up. Not in anger, in completion. They picked the restaurant we used to go to for birthdays. Leona's old brick walls, too many ceiling fans, and the private room near the fireplace, where we'd once blown out candles and clinked glasses of ginger ale. But there were no balloons this time, no cake. Just my parents, Warren and Lynette, sitting stiff at one end of Thedable, and Rhett staring at his phone, pretending this was beneath him. There was also an empty chair waiting for me, as if they still believed I could be summoned. I arrived 15 minutes late on purpose. I wore gray slacks and a button-down blouse, neutral, unreadable, Danielle had once told me. Power doesn't shout. It arrives without apology. Rhett stood when I entered. "Thanks for coming." "I didn't come for you," I said, taking the chair slowly. "Let's not waste each other's time." Warren leaned forward, eyes fixed on mine. "You made your point loud and clear." "No," I said, voice calm. "The bank made my point. I just stopped protecting your lie." His jaw tightened. Lynette shifted uncomfortably. "We're trying to hold this together," he said. "You think you're punishing us, Linda, but you're punishing the legacy your grandfather built." I looked at him steady. "Grandpa built a garage. You turned it into a dictatorship." Rhett scoffed. "Oh, come on. We gave you everything." "You gave me a job," I said, meeting his gaze, not a voice. The silence that followed was dense, almost warm, like a room that had finally stopped pretending to be anything else. Then Lynette, my mother, spoke, almost in a whisper. "What do you want, Linda?" That was the question, wasn't it? Not revenge. I had already taken that. What I wanted now was clarity. I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. "This is a signed affidavit confirming I've permanently withdrawn from the company loan, the board, and all business operations. You will never use my name again." Warren opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "I'm not finished." I took a breath. "I'm also submitting an anonymous tip to the state auditor. There are funds missing, vendors unpaid, payroll inconsistencies." I slid the envelope forward. "It's your mess now. Fully, legally." Rhett's face turned red. "You're destroying us over ego." "I'm not destroying anything," I said, standing. "I'm just removing the illusion that I was ever part of it." It turned toward the door. Behind me, for the first time in my life, my father said the one word I never expected to hear. "Linda, please." I paused, not from hesitation, but from satisfaction. "You left a voicemail telling me we were done," I said without turning around. "I'm just agreeing with you formally," and then I left. The story made it into the papers. Not the big ones, just a quiet piece in a local business digest. Wrangell Ottawa faces financial turmoil amid internal disputes. I didn't leak it, but I knew who did. Danielle called me 2 days later, her voice half serious, half smiling. "When people lose power," she said, "they look for someone to blame. They just didn't expect that person to have already walked away." After that, the voicemails turned sharp. "From my father, you ungrateful child. Webb built that business for you. You're ruining your future." From Rhett, "You think you're clever, but you'll need us someday." From Gordon Maddox, the accountant, "Do you even understand what this means? You've destroyed their legacy." But here's the thing. No one said out loud. They destroyed it long before I pulled out. They destroyed it when they used my name but denied me a seat at the table. When they decided I was a threat, not a daughter. When they made me invisible. Now the loan was caving in. The accounts frozen. The vendor contracts unraveling. And me, I was untouched. No legal blowback. No financial damage. My credit intact. My savings secure. I forwarded the last voicemail to Danielle, then deleted theirs. I took my phone off silent, and for the first time in years, it stayed quiet. No crisis, no requests, no fires that only I could put out. Oh. I moved into a small loft in downtown Portland. Nothing fancy, just sunlight, clean windows, and space enough for both a desk and peace. I started consulting quietly, helping small women-led startups avoid the kind of traps I'd lived through. Not because I needed purpose, but because I already had it. 3 months later, an envelope arrived at my new address. No return name, just the bank's logo and a tracking barcode. Inside was a single sheet of paper. This letter confirms that the commercial loan associated with Linda Wrangell has been formally withdrawn and restructured. No further obligation remains. No action required. No thank you, no apology, Nospin. Just a line drawn in ink, in law, and finally in truth. I placed the letter in a folder marked complete and slid it into the back of the cabinet. That night, I lit a candle by the window. The loft was quiet. The city below hummed, unaware and alive. I thought of that voicemail one last time. Don't bother coming to the reunion. We're cutting ties. They wanted silence, obedience, absence, and they got all three. What they didn't expect was that I would thrive inside that silence, that I would build something not out of revenge, but out of reality. I poured a glass of wine, opened a new client file, and wrote one line at the top. "You're not difficult. You're just finally visible."